Hey, everybody, welcome to the Best Ever You Show. I'm your host, Elizabeth, here with Coach Maz, Wayne Mazzoni. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I think you and I have just starting to meet each other, but I think we realize we have a lot in common. So,
Yeah, well, I saw you did a podcast the other day with one of our favorites, Coach Solano, and I emailed him like, oh my gosh, you'd be the perfect guest. And can I be on your show? I was just like, it unfolded from there. But
yes.
yeah, good. Your shows are amazing over on YouTube. What a resource.
Yeah, you know what it is. I've been doing this a long time. I know a lot of coaches, and I think the best part of these kind of podcasts is everyone's busy these days, pulled in a million directions, and when you can actually, even though it's on the computer, talk with someone for a period of time, it's awesome to just be able to lock in like that.
Yeah. So I thought one of the things I like to do is give people super useful information. So if you're going to sit with us for an hour or half hour, whatever we end up talking here, to really give them gems to walk away with. So it wasn't a complete waste of time and
Right.
energy and everything like that. And you are such a cool resource for this. So tell me about like who you are, what program you run, how you help student athletes become their best and all that stuff.
Okay, so when people ask me, like, what do you do for work? I always just say this: I coached college baseball for 30 years at a variety of different schools. Along the way, basically started writing books because this was before phones and like the internet. And I'd be on bus trips with players who were studying, and I'm like, I'm bored, so I started to write about the recruiting process. So basically, published a book in the late '90s, again prior to internet and all the ways that people market things now. So I kind of got on TV and radio, interviewed about the book. That led to high school athletic directors calling me, can you come in and speak to parents and athletes on the recruiting process? So coaching was my first thing. That was my side hustle, if you will. And then in 2022, when I realized I was tired of working every weekend of my life, I decided to make my side thing full time. So that's what I do now. I educate people on the process, and then I work with kids individually to help them really in baseball get recruited.
Yeah. And where do you think the best place to start with this conversation is? I was going to kind of take it from you. Is it the 5-year-old at Little League who's just the best player you've ever seen? And the parents are like, oh, yes, Timmy is going to be in the MLB someday. Or
I mean, I
go
guess
there with me for a minute.
Yeah, let's put it this way. I
Fantastic.
think the world has changed when it comes to youth sports.
Yeah.
In many ways good, in many ways, not so good. But like when I talk to people kind of my age in the 50s, like when they played youth sports, like the parents weren't there all the time. Like parents were working or doing other stuff. Now you can't go to a sporting event where like the parents and grandparents and relatives are all like right in front, which is cool, but a little stressful for kids. So I think when your kids are young, if it's not a joy to play the sport, what are we doing? Like, it's just got to be a pure love and let them drive it. And I think they should try a bunch of things, sports and not sports related, and let them find their passion. But definitely parents are more intense and locked in than they used to be. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny because our baseball playing son played soccer once. I've got a couple of photos of that.
Right.
No. It was funny. The coach had a dog and the dog played soccer better. It was
That's
really
funny.
cute. And it was a professional soccer player too, but he's here in Maine. But anyway, so jokes aside and things like that, it's intense out there and everybody's really serious about scholarships and baseball and sports, and the world is changing and you can see it. Let's take that kid in. Let's bump him now up to 8th grade, maybe. Let's say he's still got an interest in baseball through Little League, through all the other stuff. We're in 8th grade and we're still interested in baseball. What do we do with the 8th grader?
So for that kid, what the kid should be focusing on is straight up getting better, enjoying it, practicing on his own. Like a lot of kids will just go, I have a lesson or I have a team practice. Outside of that, they don't do enough. So I try to set up something where that kid can really develop in a fun way. And that a kid should not be in 8th grade thinking about college sports. It's too far in advance. It's living in the future. It's not being present, right? From the parent's perspective, the thing that I would probably try to do is really find out how good that kid is. baseball, unlike a lot of other sports, you could sort of blend in and have a couple of at-bats and get a walk and strike out and maybe get a hit, and then you're in right field. You only get 2 plays during the game, and you're like, well, my son's pretty good, but it's hard to tell the competition. Whereas, like, if you're in basketball and you're on the court and you're not very good, everybody knows very quickly, you know? So, like, it is hard in baseball to know, is my son really, you know, average, below average, above average? So that would be something I would attempt to try to figure out, to know whether spending all the time and effort is worth it. Because what is now the commitment is there goes your summers, first of all. So you want to go to Portugal for vacation, forget that. You're not going anywhere, right? You want to go sit at the beach in the Cape, and it's not happening because it's torn. So is that the path you want, your kids want? And is it kind of, if you're doing it, going, well, we'll give this up because it's all going to lead to something? For many, it doesn't. Right. It's not possible by sheer numbers. The amount of kids playing in high school, they can't all play in college. It doesn't work that way. So, you know, again, if people say, hey, listen, my kid loves it, I don't care where it goes, they have a blast, I don't care if they're the best or not, great. Yeah. Which is fine. But people, you know, they get sidetracked when it comes to that.
One of the best articles I've ever seen on this planet is written by you. And it's something along the lines of why parents are the worst judge of their children's athleticism or something like that. Oh my, that's the best article ever.
So it is a great article. And I start right at home with that, because I was a Division III athlete at Gettysburg College, where I was average in college, right? Yeah. And my dad is still convinced, even though I'm 55 years old and he's in his 80s, that I definitely got, you know, I got overlooked in recruiting and should have went to Notre Dame on a full ride for both sports. Like, I'm like, don't you see I was not that good, right? So parents have, you know, rose-colored glasses, but they also don't see the full population of kids that are trying to do. So he's not, you know, when I was growing up on Long Island, he wasn't watching kids in Florida and Texas and California play. So in his lens, I was good actually in that environment. That doesn't mean I was incredibly good as it compares to the group. So that's the fact with parents. They're not the best judges of talent, unfortunately.
No, they're not. I read that article. I'm like, amen. Yeah. So that's everybody should read that and be handy.
And here's the thing that we kind of mentioned prior to going live, which is a lot of these speeches and things I do when I go into a high school, I am saying exactly what the athletic director would say. The difference is the athletic director has to show up tomorrow and work with the kids on a regular basis. I get to tell the truth and leave and never see them. So I don't hold anything back, because they should hear it like it is, but I'm not the one that has to coach the kid the next day. So people need to hear the truth. It's not easy.
I'm going to flip this for a second. What if you've got a kiddo who believes in themselves, no matter what you say, no matter how bad you tell them they suck, or which you would never say it like that anyway, right. But you know, no matter what, they're believing in themselves. What do you think?
Oh, I think that's there's nothing wrong with that, provided you're like self-assessing. You're saying, I realize I'm not as good at this, but I will get that good. Awesome. The kid that just goes, no, I'm great, but isn't, that's just not going to work. So listen, I would never judge anybody on anything, because you can't measure heart. You can't measure heart. So one thing in the baseball world, for any of the, like, that never happened back in the day, was you were never labeled a pitcher only, or like you just played baseball. Now a kid in 7th grade says, I'm a pitcher only. And I say, well, why is that? Well, my coach told me. I said, do you like playing shortstop? Yeah. He goes, yeah, I love it. I go, why should you stop playing? Keep playing, even if that means you have to do it on your own. We all know many people who blossomed late. So I don't think anyone should get pigeonholed by what anyone else says.
Yeah. I have one who went to play college baseball and had baby teeth still. So I completely get it.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. But he called the other day from Germany and he's like, I played shortstop. Just what you were saying. Yeah. And I got to hit and everything. It was really cute. So just there's moments. So let's keep going with that 8th grader. And let's say they're showing promise. They still love the sport. They're playing in high school. They're showing some promise, and the parents aren't obnoxious. They're like, okay, whatever happens, happens. I'm going to interject here just slightly, because the one thing I believe is, no matter how good you are at a sport, please keep your grades up.
Start with the grades. The grades, listen, the thing I always say about academics is, from a basic standpoint, number one, the better your grades, the more options you have. And the better your grades, the cheaper college becomes because you can get merit money, right? Not to mention, it's actually nice to learn things in this life before we leave, right? But I also remember myself when I was a kid. I don't know if you can remember yourself in high school. Like,
Oh yeah.
I wasn't learning going, oh, I can't wait to use this. I learn way more now as an adult than I ever learned back then. But it is important because generally for anyone playing any sport, that is going to stop at some stage, and you do need your education. There are some kids where maybe they wouldn't have gone to college if it wasn't for a sport, and the sport kind of keeps them. And that's great too. If the sport helps you stay studying and keep your grades up, that's fantastic.
Yeah. What about the family that is spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to be seen, heard, play around the country, recruited, and all of that? I see it. So we have a kiddo, again, I just have kind of my frame of reference and maybe a few others, but we have a kiddo who played Legion, who played Little League, who played locally, did a few things here or there, tagging along with other kids on teams and things like that. But thousands of dollars were not spent. We have 4 boys and they're each 2 years apart, and they've all been in college since 2013. So, we're penny pinching and things like that. But what about those families that are spending thousands? Like, they're spending the scholarship already.
So this is what we could spend an hour talking about. The issue is, it's kind of the system the way it is now. So like, if you do want to play in college, you need to play outside of high school. Some areas in the country still have local teams and Legion teams, but it's become a business, right? So that, and these teams basically have facilities a lot of times, and they help develop the kids. And then a kid will get scholarships, and then they're promoting that. And a kid says, well, if I want that, I'm going to go this route too. It's kind of what you have to do somewhat these days. Hopefully you're enjoying the process and enjoying that experience, even if it doesn't lead to college. But if you are spending all that with the sole purpose of getting a return on your investment, there's better ways to get a return on your investment.
Yeah. So what do you say to kids, and parents and families? Do you say, go to the best college you can get into and play baseball there? Or what's your motto there? How do you help people get recruited?
Okay. So it's a matter of a 3-pronged.
Go back and roll my sleeves up as
Yes.
I
It's a 3-pronged approach. Number one, what's a good academic fit based on your grades, based on what you might want to study. So you're trying, because there's about 3,500 colleges in the United States that have an athletic program, right? Mm-hmm. So it's impossible to get recruited by all those. So you have to target it a little bit. Like you would do a job search, you kind of target what you're looking. So obviously you're narrowing things down by your academics. You're narrowing things down by trial and error of visiting. How far from my house do I want to be? Do I like a city setting? Do I want 40,000 students or 2,000 students? What kind of, campus environment? So you're trying, and you only learn this by visiting. You could go to collegeboard.com or Naviance, most schools use, and you could research online, but it's only really when you get to campuses do you go, I like this and show me more schools like this, or I don't like this at all. But you start to get what you like about the school. And then the third prong is, how good are you at baseball? We're talking baseball now, right? Are you a high-level Division I player, mid-level Division I, Division II, Division III? Not good enough for any of those levels yet. But when you start putting all those parameters together, usually 10, 15, 20, 25 schools make sense that fit you in all those areas. And that's usually where you should start the process.
Yeah. And has it changed? Like, what's happening in the recruiting world as far as scholarships go, as far as that transfer portal? I noticed there have been some big changes lately with the NCAA. What's that all about? Should we not talk about?
Let's start with this.
Or not?
Yeah. No. I'll tell you why it is worth talking about. I would usually talk about something else first, but let me explain why.
Yeah.
The scholarship piece is only for such a small percentage of kids good enough to get a scholarship. So out of all the kids playing high school baseball that will get a scholarship of some sort to play in college, you're looking at 2% roughly. Okay. 1% are pitchers, 1% are position players. So start with, that's a very small percentage. And then the percentage of kids that wind up entering the transfer portal, of those, kids that get there is still a relatively small
Right.
percent. Now, it is a big factor. The transfer portal has changed the way that most coaches recruit because they now have the option to get a kid already in college or go back and get a high school kid. And then on the other side of the transfer portal is you have kids leave. So where you used to have this set roster, all of a sudden you have your exit meetings in May or early June with the kids and you go, oh my God, 6 kids are leaving. I didn't know. Now you have extra kids to bring in. So it's kind of made rosters more year to year and almost giving it that junior college where kids come in and kids leave.
Yeah.
Some programs use it more than others, but it has changed the process quite a bit. But again, back to the scholarships, even though they just have this new legislation that now Division I can give out 34 scholarships. It has not fully been approved, this new rule. It's expected to be. Just because they're saying 34 athletes could get a baseball scholarship does not mean all the colleges in the country that have limited monies are all of a sudden going to throw out free tuition and room and board for 34 kids.
No, that's not happening.
Right.
So one of the things that, if I can, is it okay if I talk about New Haven and Coach
Sure,
Solano
of course.
for a minute?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
One of the things that our son did is he stepped foot. Well, first of all, Coach Solano invited him there. So I'm pitching, said, come on and let's do a visit. He stepped foot on that campus and he was like, oh, this is the place. This is the coach. This is the place. This is the everything for me. And Coach Solano is so, to me, different. I've now been through a lot and I've seen enough, not like you have or anything like that, but enough. And he's so fiercely loyal to his players. It almost makes me tear up. He is a very cool coach. When you are recruited by Coach Solano, you have a home.
Yes. And I'll go a little further with that, which I think you know what I'm about to say,
yeah.
but you may not, is, I have 2 favorite people in all of coaching. Solano is one, and Tom Rispoli is the other,
yep.
who was at New Haven forever. I don't know if you're aware he left and took another job.
I didn't.
He's coaching at University of Dayton with Scott Loazzo,
Nice.
He's moving and he's not. Those 2 together, I'm like, when people would say New Haven, I go, you can't get 2 better humans. Start there, number one. But then it's also, that's why getting on campus is crucial, because there'll be kids that are kind of local. I'm about a half an hour from University of New Haven. Yeah. So most of the kids that I'll work with, if I said, hey, you should go check out New Haven, they'd be like, it's right around the corner. I don't like it. Then they go and they see everything it's about, and they're like, holy mackerel, I had no idea.
No idea
That's
that was
why you
there.
have to get on campus. Right?
Yeah. And Coach Rispoli literally gave Cam the shirt off his back. Cam had a rip. And he was like, you can't have that at practice. You know, why do you have a different shirt on? He's like, my shirt that I'm supposed to have has a rip on it. And Coach Rispoli took his shirt off and put it on Cam.
Not surprising. Not surprising. The kind of human he is.
So, yep. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, really, really interesting. And so how do you find that in players and people and coaching and things like that? Is it like that, or are we just
so
special
this is
example?
a great point. What number one we said is you gotta be open-minded, right? If you know the school is absolutely not what you want, there's no sense to waste time, money, etc. But if it's somewhat in the ballpark, you got to go visit because you may be completely surprised, right? The second thing is I tell every kid that I work with when they're down to that final decision, which they get crazy stressed out. First of all, it's good to be recruited, but when you have 3 or 4 or 5 schools that say, hey, September 1, we need an answer, and they're stressed out, I always say, here's the next step. Talk to kids on the team. Talk to players currently on the team that are living the life that you're about to live. Are they happy? Are they not? Because I can tell you, I love this coach, but I'm not playing for that coach. They might have a different relationship with their players than they would have with me. So I always say, do research, talk to a couple of kids and get their take. And if they give the coach and the program a stamp of approval, you're usually in pretty good shape.
Yeah. So is that classified as like the culture?
I would say so. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So what if you get there and you're like, oh my, the culture is drinking or juuling or this or that or another thing. What do you do? Like, do you fit in? Do you stay? There's a huge problem with stuff, substances and things like that on teams.
So there's a bunch of ways to answer that. First is hopefully you vetted it out ahead of time. Okay. But when you get into college programs, there's still 40 kids, 45 kids, you're always going to have you guys that go out too much. You're probably going to always have the guys that I would say study too much, that don't have enough. Like most of the kids have a nice balance. They know how to manage all that. So I would just say, find your people, find your people. And then typically in a best scenario, the best players are the ones that are doing all the right things, and you go to that group. But there's always this quote in coaching of like 25% of the kids will always love the coach. 25% of the kids don't like the coach. So the whole idea is to get the other 50% to hang out with the guys that like the coach or that do the right things.
That's
you know what
cute.
I mean? Yeah, because it can. I've seen teams go south, especially you're not playing well, you're not winning, and then things start to get second guessed. But when the kids do know, and you can't fake this, when the kids know that you care, like a Solano, and then they're always on your side because they know you actually do care. Yeah. And you can't fake that. Yeah.
Well, especially in our case, where we had a college baseball player who, in his youth, he was really sick. He almost didn't make it to age 3. So, we were pretty nervous. We're like, oh my, what's this going to be like? We could see him in high school and he was here at home, but we're like, oh my, he's going to be doing this. It was like having 2 full-time jobs. I don't know if people realize that or not. It's not like here you go to school and baseball comes up and you play and then you have your summer. It doesn't stop in the summer. If you're good enough, you might get to go play in the summer leagues. It goes all the time and things like that. So, but that was really important to have that family environment and that love for Coach Solano, even as parents. And we're like, we're not going to get in, we aren't those people who are like going to tell you how to coach or how much our son should play or all this stuff, But just to be friends with him was lovely. Just to be like, hey, how's it going? Does the team need donuts or cookies or pizza or what do you need?
And many coaches would say, and this was my style all the years I was recruiting, you're recruiting families. You want good people in there, right? I was never the one that, don't talk to parents. The only thing I would say is when your kid arrives on campus, they're the one that should be saying, I need different cleats or I have to change a class. Like if that's coming from a parent, we have a problem, right? It's time to grow up. There are times parents should absolutely be involved. If like, oh, we just got our financial aid package, it's $6,000 and that's different than we thought. Parent gives a call about that, no problem. But let the kid should be handling it first because that's what they're there to be. They're there to grow up.
It's a pretty big transition for people, I think. But we have had such a lovely experience with college baseball. I mean, it's just really been fun. Again, we weren't those people going, Cam needs a full scholarship to this and he better play every day. We're like, whatever. Yeah. We're way more mellow about the whole thing, especially having a lefty pitcher. He's not going to play every day.
Right. Well, Solano's a lefty pitcher. I'm a lefty pitcher. So we have all that in common. But what was I just going to say? Oh, I just lost my train of thought about we were just talking about.
We were just parents and intervention and it's okay. I do it all the time too.
Yes.
Come back to me and interrupt and it'll all be good. I get it.
Yes.
But it was funny when Cam went to sign with Coach Solano. He went to the school to sign the paperwork. Cam's actually right-handed. And Coach Solano stopped him and is like, wait a minute.
Oh, that's funny. Hold on. I thought I got a lefty pitcher.
Yeah, he's a lefty pitcher, but he's actually right-handed. So that was hilarious. So talk about, oh my gosh, I have so many notes for you. One of the things that I don't think people talk about a lot is the fact that a college athlete into the job market is so amazing. I read a quote, and I'm going to look down for a minute while I read it. It's by CEO Larry Fisk. He was the former CEO of Citizens Bank. He said, "Don't bring me anybody who wasn't a college athlete. They do the work in the dark when nobody is watching, and they are able to perform in high-stakes moments. They work until they get it right. They're not afraid to learn and master new skills. They're generally not satisfied with the status quo. They beat their personal records, and they're comfortable with delayed gratification." Isn't that about sum it up? It's like mic drop.
No, that's fantastic. And as you were saying that, it made me remember what I wanted to say before, which ties into what you just said, which is playing any sport in college is great because you go to the college and you have a group of friends. When kids go to a school and they don't like it, it's because they can't find their people. And that's hard when you're a regular student. So back to what he said, when you're, and you said it earlier, when you're a college athlete at any school at any level, it's added so much work to your hopefully fun work, but so much responsibility, to the point where, like, if you go to college and you don't play a sport, boy, you have a lot of free time. So I think these people and there's a whole network of people that only prefer to hire athletes because it shows grit. It takes 4 years to play a sport and stick with it. That's a lot of grit, no question.
What do you think about all the kids that are there in college, players that are there in college playing baseball, and they're thinking, I don't really need to pay attention to school because guess what? I'm going to get drafted.
I'm going to give you a two-part answer.
I know.
A two-part answer.
Yeah.
The first part is they're crazy, right?
Yeah.
The chances of getting drafted and then of making a living from baseball is extremely low. Yeah. So if some kids may have reason to believe that, you're talking to scouts, you're playing in the Cape Cod League in the summer, and maybe I get that. Like, hey, I have a legitimate chance, and I'm not going to worry if I get a C or an A. I get it. The other side of that, this is one of my favorite stories of all time. There's a player that played for me at Sacred Heart named Zack, who has been in the major leagues 3 years, played with a variety of teams. And he said to me once, if you see me get above a 2.5 any semester, tell me to get my priorities straight, because I should be spending every extra hour hitting, fielding, lifting. And he was like, he said it kind of joking, but he graduated. Well, actually still has to graduate because he got drafted after junior,
right,
with like a 2.4, 2.5, but he's a big leaguer, right?
Yeah.
So because again, what's the purpose of college? The purpose of college is to learn and set yourself up for the future. So I would even, we'd argue with administrators sometimes that wouldn't get this, and I get why they wouldn't get it, but it's like, we have an event where scouts are going to be at to evaluate our players. It's called like a scout day.
Yeah.
You're telling me a kid can't miss a class to go to that? That could actually lead more to his future than sitting around and being in bio class for that day, right? Yeah. So again, most kids, I don't care if you're at Clemson or LSU, your chance of going pro are very slim. So kids should study and prepare for life after college, but there are some that are that gifted that is their best skill they have, and there's nothing wrong with pursuing that.
Well, it was interesting because Cam's roommate at Georgetown and best friend is Jake Bloss. And Jake Bloss was drafted and started for the Astros and is now with the Blue Jays and things like that. But, you could just tell.
Right.
I don't know how to explain it, but Cam's like, that's who's getting drafted. We all knew. And we've never said, oh, Cam, you need to be drafted.
Right.
We're good.
Right.
We were just thankful that he went into do anything and back up to just surviving. We're good, kind of thing. So
good perspective.
But, we're good. But it was like that's the person on this team. That's who. Watch Jake, kind of thing. And it's been really cool to watch Jake. We just talked to Jake yesterday, even just like, how's it going? Are you okay? Do you need us to send you cookies? What's happening?
Yeah, isn't it? It's cool to see these kids and kind of attach yourself to their journey. And
it's fun.
Boy, the minor leagues is brutal.
Oh,
it's brutal experience. Most know, but many don't know how lonely. How it's gotten better because they've changed rules, but it used to be you'd lose money while you were in the minor leagues. You have terrible conditions. You get messed up if you had to rent a place, and then you get moved, and then you lose deposit. Like, it's just a lot of details that you don't see. They've upgraded the minor leagues for the better, but it's still a rough road.
Yeah. He's grateful. My husband bought his baseball cards, and it was really cute. So just little tidbits of happiness that go in there. Tell me about if you can. I wanted to talk before I have you go. We're at 12:30 or so, about half an hour. But what's the difference these days between D1, D2, D3, JUCO, whatever it is? Is it based off of ticket sales in football? Is it based off of skill? Is it based off of what? If I'm a player in high school, do I really care where I get a chance to play college baseball?
Okay. So there's, again,
one sec. Most people just see like D1 stars in their eyes, like I have to be D1 or I'm nothing. And I don't love that at all. So it hurts right here.
Yeah, no, I get it, and that's what I deal with all the time working with
Yeah.
kids. But I'll answer that again, and sort of because the people watching may not understand. So,
Yeah.
Division I universities are Division I for a variety of reasons. First of all, in all their sports. So, if one sports Division I, they're basically all Division Is. There's small exceptions to that, but basically all Division I. And typically, it's based on like your football and basketball programs in terms of the size of your arena or your field, et cetera. So there's a lot of parameters, and it's usually football and basketball that drives that for most sports.
Yeah.
So there's also other differences between Division I and II can give out athletic scholarships. Division III can't. Junior colleges can give out scholarships as well. Then it goes even further. The higher the level, the more practice hours, the longer the season, the more number of games, the more off-season things you can do. And the lower the levels, the less number of games, and et cetera. It's still a big commitment, but the rules, because kids could always do stuff on their own. That doesn't count as part of the NCAA clock that you have to follow. But so now, in terms of the other piece of it is, if someone said to me, what's the difference between a Division III athlete and a Division I athlete? I say athleticism, size, speed, strength, 30 pounds, 4 inches. Like, if anyone watched the College World Series in Division I on TV, these are adult men. These are men that shaved in 7th grade. And like,
I kept saying, oh my God, it looks like 40-year-olds playing.
It's what it looks. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So it's, but still, and you've seen this, especially with the transfer portal since COVID, these Division III kids we talked about, I think maybe before we were on air, Coach Leonard at Middlebury, great coach, great program. He's had players leave Middlebury and immediately go to Power 5 baseball programs and start and dominate. So it's kind of been shown, if you're good anywhere, you're really good. And you'll see Division III kids get drafted and whatnot. Now, the other thing is, when I start working with a kid and they want to play college sports, very rarely does a kid say, I just want to play Division III. I know I'm not Division I. I don't want that level. Some do, but others will say, listen, I'd love to play Division I. But if that doesn't work out, I just want to be playing ball at a school I like with the good academics and all that. That's the perfect kid. And while you didn't necessarily ask me this, I think it's important. When I'm working with kids and they do start with that high level, what I do is I say, okay, 6 months later, these 6 Division I programs that are on your list, here's what the coaches all said. They all said you're not good enough. So do you either want to keep beating your head against the wall that way? Do you believe you could get better? Or is it now time to say, hey, let's look at other schools, because there's plenty of awesome schools out there, plenty of great schools.
Yeah. Our kiddo hit the D2 level, and it was like the porridge was just right. That level, that Northeast 10, it's super competitive. It I mean, really competitive.
Really competitive.
Like, I think they could go toe to toe with a lot of different places. And very academic focused, the right number of games. It was just really neat.
Absolutely. You got to explore all the different options. And you're right. Even some of those NE10 teams that left, like your Stonehills and Bryant back, like, they go to Division I and they're as good as anyone. So like, I would always look at New Haven, for example, and say, yeah, that's a Division I team. They just have a Division II after. They're still really, really, really good.
Yeah, really, really fun. Okay, what haven't I asked you? I don't want to keep you forever here. We could go on and on and on, I feel like, but I think we've given people a pretty good. You have a book I love, You versus You. You have a bunch of books I love, but
yeah, that one, again, I had a lot of time to write, coaching and being, I still love to read, so I enjoyed writing, and I still kind of believe that we're all really competing against ourselves, right? Like, you're your own worst enemy sometimes, or your own biggest thing, and kind of on that note, this is something I talk about all the time with kids and parents. Like, the whole world kind of has an idea how to get bigger and stronger. Like, they know how to weight train. They go to facilities. They get a strength coach, etc. And they know how to develop their skill as pitchers. They have pitching coaches and teams and hitting coaches. The great place to unlock your gifts is mentally, right? But if I ask your average kid, how much out of 100%, how much does the mental part determine how good you are? They'll say 60, 70%. And then I go back and say, well, how much do you train it? And they say 0%. So to me, there's podcasts, there's TV shows, there's books you can read, there's meditation, there's mental rehearsal, there's things you can do to make in between your ears your best asset.
Yeah.
Because ultimately the kids that have the right mindset usually play the best, enjoy it the most, take it the furthest.
Yeah. What would you say, is there anything that you think needs to change?
I would
everything?
say I would go with two things. One is while I don't think it's bad for certain kids to go baseball only,
Mhm.
I think that if they are really enjoying another sport, it's pretty easy to play two sports in high school and still make baseball your primary and still get recruited there. Many kids in college will say their biggest regret was giving up soccer or basketball or football, or they just regret it because that was the purest time of athletics. Like, you get to college, it's awesome, but it's a lot of work, it's pressure. Whereas you're playing with buddies you grow up with in high school. So I would say if you love your second sport or even third, keep playing it. If you see it as a just work, then don't do that. The other thing I would love to see change, you talked about earlier, I don't have a solution. In baseball, it's too expensive to participate. Between the gear, between the teams you need to be on, the travel schedule, the hotels that you have to pay for, all this stuff, I don't have a good answer, but it would be nice if there was a way to make it not so expensive, because we are missing out on kids that can't afford it, and we're losing them to to other things that are just cheaper and easier to do.
Yeah, I grew up in Iowa, and in Iowa, baseball is a summer sport. So I don't know if the kids have to choose between like a travel team and playing for the high school, or how that works. I've been wondering that. I'm like, how does that work? Because all the guys I grew up with, they just played baseball for the high school, and it was all summer long.
Right.
And they went on to be recruited and things like that. They played.
We also know a big sport in Iowa is that too, right? Basketball's big, right?
Yes.
Still
Yeah, absolutely. Go Hawks.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I've got a couple more questions for you. Here at Best Ever You, we talk about incredible yes. An incredible yes is a moment where you said yes to someone or something and it changed your life. Do you have a moment or two like that in your life where you said yes to something or someone and it changed your life?
Let me give a second on that.
Okay.
I guess my best answer would be that I'm not sure how this is the exact one epiphany where that particularly happened, but I reached a certain stage in life where I realized it's okay if I do something alone. Meaning, in the past, well, I'm only going to go see this movie if I can get 3 friends to go, or I'm only going to go to do this if my friends are going to go. And I just got to a point where, like, I realized if I want to go on a hike or I want to go on a trip, or like today is Tuesday, on Thursday, I'm flying alone, and I'm flying to the state of Washington to go to the Gorge to see Dave Matthews Band 3 concerts in a row. Now, I've been to hundreds of shows with people, but this has been a bucket list thing.
Yep.
And no one just wanted to go over Labor Day weekend. I'm going alone. So I'm not sure that answers your question exactly, but it's like I've realized I'm fine. And in fact, it's funny, when I interviewed Chris Solano, he would even say, like, he loves heavy metal music, and he'll go to see bands in New Haven alone because he goes, my friends don't want to go see that kind of music. So the idea of, like, it just needs me to have a good time is very freeing.
That makes sense. All right. We also talk about gratitude, change, and success all the time. Of those 3 words, which one's your favorite and why?
I would say probably gratitude. And my gratitude comes in nature. So when I didn't kind of grow up an outdoors kid. I don't know how it got into me, but now my happy place is with my dog in the woods or somewhere just peaceful. And my family took a vacation to Switzerland this summer where, like, you can't believe what you're seeing. Like, I'm not a religious person. When I look at those mountains, I said, that's God to me. So that's gratitude. Like, how could it be this nice? And we live in the same climate. You and I, you're in Maine, I'm in Connecticut. Like, There's some days it is hot and humid. It is disgusting out. But then when October comes and it's 65 and sunny and fall with breezy, it's like, that's gratitude for that, So, and I remind myself that all the time. Like, I have this young dog that's a year and a half. And we got him because the previous dog passed. I look at my dog sometimes and go, someday he's not going to be here. So, like, just enjoy every moment, because life is a precious gift that we've been given.
Do you? Yeah, I completely agree. And do you have moments where you can teach kids this more? Or do you think college coaches could teach kids this more, their players and so forth? Because I hear sometimes like, oh, I suck, or we suck, or we're terrible, or we're losing, or this or that and another thing. I always wonder if people really understand gratitude in the sense that, you're pretty darn amazing already as is. You're like one of like a small percentage of people that are right there able to do that. And do we frame things like that for people, or do they learn that? I just sometimes wonder. It's a huge topic for me.
It's a wonderful question. I will say this. I can't speak for all coaches, but I think that's a big part of the way coaches talk and teach, etc.
Yeah.
However, I don't know if that message hits home until they graduate and they're in the real world. Like, I've had a lot of kids say, "Oh my God, I thought these things you said when I was in college were just stupid. Now, like, I actually get it." Because I don't know, they're in it every day. So their world, like, 0 for 4 is that they're miserable, because that's all they're about. When then they get out of college and they go like, "Who cares what my batting average was back then?" Like, so sometimes it takes perspective to see that. So I think it's still important to talk about it, because that will be something that will matter to them. But sometimes at that moment, they just have to suffer, because, that's how you grow sometimes.
Yeah, I thought we might go on and on here for an hour, but we're going to keep going. A couple more things. Okay, so our son, not drafted or anything like that, was not even in the realm of possibility, especially after getting hurt against Navy. He's got a pin in his hand and things like that. He did say, I really want to play until they rip this shirt off my back, though, kind of thing.
Right.
He's like, I want to really try and keep going, like, whatever you do your thing. So he put himself in the overseas portal. And what an interesting journey that has been. He's like, this is the best thing I've ever done. And where the idea came from was Coach Solano.
Correct.
Because he said early on to us, this could be like the coolest thing you ever do, play overseas, kind of thing. And so it got in his head. I didn't really think about it again until Cam brought it up. I'm like, oh yeah, kind of thing. And so he's overseas. Again, it's just my frame of reference.
Yes.
Kids do this. So pardon if I'm talking about Cam, but again, broaden it out. He's overseas in Busan, Germany, playing, pitching, coaching. There's coaching kids, every aspect of baseball that you could want, he's doing. And he's in the foothills. It's all mountains. It's on the border of Austria. And he's been to all these different countries at this point. And he's like, this is the coolest thing we've ever done. And and his fiance got to go. So he's getting paid. He's got housing. He's got transportation, a visa, a work visa, everything. What do you think about this whole overseas thing? Is it going to, explode and become more and more popular? Is it just?
It's a good question. I think it starts with this. Most kids, they either want to get drafted, or if they don't get drafted, they try to stay in the United States and play independent ball.
Yeah.
With the idea that someone will realize how good they are and bring them to it, affiliated, as they call it, right? Yeah. I think generally, for most, I'm not up on all the overseas stuff, but I think when you're going there, the kids that are going there aren't going, this is my ticket back to the big leagues.
No,
right?
no, yeah.
So it's just, but I think it's genius, because I encourage everybody after college, boy, don't rush into life too quickly, because you're going to work your whole life and you're going to get locked in. So if you can travel and you can do stuff like that, fantastic. So in essence, that's that kind of experience. You're going to a new culture, you're seeing beautiful places, you're expanding your world, all while kind of doing it through baseball, getting money to do it. I mean, that's incredible experience to do.
The pictures are insane. And then our youngest son said so he also is a Georgetown graduate. His master's degree is at Georgetown. He went to RIT and then Georgetown.
Yep.
And he's like, for graduation, what do you think if I go overseas and visit Cam? I'm like, oh, that's an interesting thing. Let me check my bank account,
Right.
kind of thing. And so anyway, we were able to do it and we made it work and our family helped and things like that. But he went over and stayed with Cam for a month. And they went to Italy and they went to Venice and oh my goodness.
Yeah, and just for in your situation,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be crazy expensive. Obviously, you got to get there with a flight somehow.
Yeah,
But if
exactly.
you
Yeah.
could sleep on his couch and
Yeah.
you don't have to eat expensively,
It was
it can
perfect.
be manageable. Absolutely,
Yeah.
what a great experience they had together.
Yeah. So I've got this thing that I think baseball is one of the best connectors. It is so interesting how everybody's, it's not like 6 degrees separated from Kevin Bacon, but maybe. I don't know. It is such a connector of people. You can, and I love how, so I'm an old gymnast and it was super competitive and it was not super family and yay you and all this stuff. But
Right.
baseball, it seems like people turn around and they take care of the kids. It seems like it's a giant family. Am I wrong in that?
So I'll say this. To me, there's that, and this Solano had said the same thing. It's funny because that conversation wasn't too long ago. From a playing perspective, the sport that bonds you the most seems to be football because of what you go through
Oh,
to play football, et cetera. Baseball in a different way where you can actually have downtime. You're not wearing a mask. You can actually talk to other people. A lot of these kids train in together, but maybe on different high school teams. So it is actually a small world when you break it
yeah.
down. Like, yeah, if I sat with any kid playing baseball, we're going to know people in common, coaches, other players, etc. Of course, social media brings that together. It's competitive, but at the same time, it's also communal, because
It's
you're
pretty
having
neat,
the
though.
shared experience. Agreed.
Yeah,
Yes.
people really look out for each other. It's
Agreed.
it's very interesting. It's like, have you seen him play? Have you seen it's pretty neat. So anyway,
Yes.
all right. Are we good? Anything
We
else
are
I
good
can pry
because
your
now,
brain about?
because tomorrow the tides
Meet
turn,
you.
and you join my podcast, so the tides turn for
Exactly.
tomorrow. Yes.
So anyway, absolutely so grateful to have you here. It's been so much fun getting to know you. I hope you come back. I think we could like take little topics and have conversations that are 20 minutes long and help the world. It might be kind of fun. So
Here's
anyway,
what we could also do. First of all, thank you for having me. But what we
yeah.
could also do at some point
Yeah.
is maybe have you and Solano, and do a
Oh,
little three-way talk too, if
oh,
we
that'd
can
be
do
so
that.
much fun. Yeah,
Yes,
he's
so
been on my show a bunch of times. Yeah,
yeah,
I just have taken he's very interesting because he's so much more than baseball too.
exactly. Yes,
He's just
that's why he and
so
I bond,
yeah.
because many baseball coaches, they're just poof, that's it, nothing else. Right?
Yeah.
We could talk music and other things and
Yeah.
politics, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, like you and I could have gone on and on about dogs.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
I
Exactly.
have 2 dogs, same thing. The
Yes.
dog
Second, I
passed
get the
away.
headphones off. I'm going to take my dog out of the
Yeah,
crate
my
so it's
dog's
not
looking
barking.
at me
Yeah.
right there.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
anyway, all right. Lots of love. Thank
All
you.
right, Elizabeth. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so
Great.
much for listening, everybody. What's your website? Where can people find you? That's one thing we got to close with.
Sure. An email is the easy. I'll start with that. It's Wayne@WayneMazzoni.com. I've
Okay.
made it even though it's all about me, it's the easiest way to remember it. And then collegebaseballadvisor.com is where they can check out just what I do with kids recruiting wise.
Perfect. All right, everybody. Thank you for being my guest. Thank you all for listening, watching, listening, because it's going to go over onto the podcast too. And if you've got any questions, you know where to find us. Thank you.
Thank
Take
you,
care,
everyone.
everybody.